Great this bright and early Tuesday morning. Senator Goodman, would you lead us off with a prayer?
Be glad to, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Y'all pray with me, please. Dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you for today, Lord. We thank you for loving us. We thank you for the gift of salvation, Lord. And as we go about this meeting, Lord, we just ask for your wisdom and discernment that we make good decisions, Lord, on behalf of the people of Georgia, and that we're good steward of the resources that they provide to the state, Lord. And we just thank you for all the many blessings you bestowed upon us. In Jesus' holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen. First up this morning, we've got Department of Audits and Accounts.
All right. Very good. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and member of the committee. Good to see you. Glad to be here. So our budget begins in section 4, page 3, I believe, on the tracking sheets. And I would just start off by saying we are very supportive of the House recommendations as presented. Just to orient you real quick, we have 4 programs. Those programs are in sections 9, 10, 11, and 12. And program 9 is our audit and assurance program. That is our largest program by far, and captures all the costs for related to our audits, whether they are financial audits, performance audits, or any of the work that we're doing with local governments. If okay, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to skip over any statewide additions that are throughout our sections and focus the remainder of my comments on our requests that are primarily going to be in the sections followed by dot 4 and dot 5 throughout the programs. So. As I mentioned to the House and in our presentation, the audit profession continues to experience significant pressures. We're not only competing fiercely for staff in terms of retention and recruitment, we're also facing heightened demands on audit quality, as evidenced through the issuance of several new auditing standards over the past year or so. And in addition, like many other state agencies, I think we are experiencing inflationary pressures on our non-staff costs, our operating expenses, due to significant increases in year-over-year vendor pricing. So we have 3 requests totaling $1.7 million for your consideration today to help address the most critical of those pressures. The first request relates to the non-staff costs. We're requesting $750,000 of additional funds for operating expenses, again, to primarily cover inflationary pressures around the IT area, software license fees, and other contractual arrangements. And that $750,000 is spread throughout the various programs. So you'll see dollar amounts at lines 9.5, 10.4, and 12.4. Those should all total up to about $750,000. Over the years, we've been able to cover these increases, but we are fast approaching the point where we can no longer absorb those inflationary pressures. And so that is the basis for that request. In addition, we are requesting 6 new positions totaling $975,000. We're requesting 3 data analyst positions to support our data analytics program. We are also requesting 3 new audit quality positions to support the implementation of those new audit quality standards that become effective at the end of this calendar year. So that cost, again, $975,000. That is on line 9.4 in our our audit program. That split is about $405,000 for the analyst and $570,000 for the quality positions. Just briefly on the quality, again, as I mentioned, we've got several new quality standards that we've got to comply with. It's not just us, but it's all auditing firms, both public and private, that we're all having to comply with these new requirements, and these will result in additional costs to implement both now and in the future. And these are incremental compliance roles that we really can't avoid, and we are, again, looking to fill. And then on our data analysts, again, we're looking to continue to develop and support our data analytics program. Technology and data play a vital role in our work, enabling us to improve the quality of our work, to generate efficiencies, and to create ways in which to communicate the results of our audits and our insights. And so these analyst positions have very different skill sets from our auditors. They're complementary. And again, they're there to help enhance and support our investment that we're making in our data analytics program by, again, accelerating the development of our capabilities and accelerating our speed to value realization. So that's, Mr. Chairman, that is our requests, and I'll be glad to take any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. And then I should have started off with this, and now I'm going to catch you after you've presented, but do want to make this statement to all agencies that are presenting today. Given that the House passed a budget that had inclusion of items of ongoing operational nature that was around 1% of the governor's revenue estimates was set to accomplish. Want to know what areas in your agency budget might exist that will assist the state in identifying 1% of efficiencies in budget reductions. And I know it's a quick turnaround with only 9 days left in the legislative session, but would like to get y'all's answers on that by the end of the day, Wednesday. If you could send that to me or Emily, that would be great. Any questions or comments from the committee on the current presentation? I did have a couple of questions for you. We appropriated $870,000 for expanding the analytics capabilities for the amended FY24 budget. Just wanted to see if you had any update on that.
Sure.
It's been recent.
So you appropriated about $1 million in the amended 24. So that was those were one-time funds to allow us to test and experiment with new data analytics tools. So we have spent around $250,000 to $300,000 to date, looking at 2 or 3 different tools. And so we're assessing those tools to determine whether or not we need to add those to our tech stack and to our data analytics tool set. So we think there's going to be some favorable outcomes. I think some of what we're going to find and some of the insights that we'll see will help address your ask that you just made here a few minutes ago. But it's progressing. It's going to be a journey. It's not going to be a quick fix, but it will be a journey that we go on for a number of years. But we are making some good progress and seeing some good results.
Okay, thank you. And then on what you may have to get back to me on this one, but on the $750K, how much exactly have your expenditures on software increased due to the switch to subscription-based pricing?
So we did an analysis over looking at our software costs, and over the last several years, it's been about 15% year over year, and we expect that to continue, particularly as we move from on-prem to cloud services, and also as we continue to see more and more subscription-based pricing. It's going to be future increases.
Thank you. Any other questions? Goodman.
Thank you for being here, my friend. I know you and I have talked in the past about a lot of these small towns that are behind on their audits. Just two questions. One, how many do you know off the top of your head are behind right now? And then also, are these new positions, are they going to help in, are they going to help in any way in trying to help facilitate these folks getting back in compliance?
The answer to the second question is no. We're our efforts in the local government areas to do desk reviews on the audits that are performed by the local government auditors. So the audit quality standards are affecting the audits that we perform. So we don't really do audits on those folks. The number of cities that are behind, it's mainly smaller cities, not necessarily counties. I think it's the number's over 100. It's close to 150, somewhere 125 to 150 cities that are behind in their annual audits, and there are probably 20 to 30 cities that are behind in multiple years. So we are trying to work on that. We do have on the House side, there's a bill coming over that has some recommendations that we put forth to the House Rural Development Council that we think will help alleviate some of the burden that some of those smaller cities are experiencing. So hopefully we'll see that will move through the Senate here shortly.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, thank you so much for your presentation. I appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
Next up, State Ethics Commission.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senators, I am on page 10 of your tracking sheet. And my only real request is on line 38.1. What I'm asking this committee and the Senate to do is to include and agree with the governor and OPB's recommendation of a $105,000 increase in our budget. Cards on the table. No one's really happy with the e-filing system that we all have right now that y'all all use. We're going to be replacing that late this year. The new system will be going online. And this $105,000 represents the increased cost we'll be paying for maintenance and IT. Like you just heard, we also will be going from on-prem to cloud-based. IT costs are increasing. This is essentially the delta between what we're paying now and what we'll need to be paying. And candidly, we've thrown every available dollar within our budget at the increased cost of IT just to get it down to 105. We've taken from our retained revenue. We've taken from some retirements and the money we're currently paying that staff, as well as some planned raises and promotions. So this 105 is the minimum we need to be able to meet that cost. As far as the 1%, Mr. Chairman, candidly, there is really no other money we have for that 1% other than personnel. So I'm coming to you with sort of the bare minimum that we're requesting to meet that cost. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions from the committee? And I think you answered this already as far as your minimum ask was that 105, but given the House is proposing you utilize existing funds, isn't the annual maintenance that is it $545,000?
Yeah, that's the total cost that
Okay.
we'll be paying. 105 more than we're currently paying now. You know, there's some money that moves around there. Right now, we're on premise, on-prem servers, and we're going to a cloud-based. So we're sort of shifting those funds from what we call IT versus in-house, but that 105 represents the amount we just don't currently have.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any further comments or questions? Thank you for the presentation. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Department of Administrative Services.
Good morning.
Morning, how are you?
Good. I'm Rebecca Sullivan. I'm honored to serve as the Commissioner of the Department of Administrative Services. And with me today is Paulette Petty. She's the Chief Financial Officer for our agency. Thank you very much for the invitation to speak to you today about the changes and recommendations outlined in the FY26 budget for DOAS. Our information is reflected in Section 12, pages 10 through 18 of the tracking document. And there are just 3 changes reflected in the tracking sheet. First, line 40.1 is a house change that eliminates one-time funding from our base budget for a specific compensation resolution that was paid out in FY25. We agree with that change. Line 43.1 pertains to the Human Resources Administration Division of DOAS. Line 43.1 is to increase funds to recognize additional revenue from merit system assessments based on increased statewide salary to support human resources initiatives in the amount of $409,000. Our Human Resources Administration Division, or HRA, administers enterprise-wide human resources programs and provides agencies with resources and tools to attract, retain, and manage a high-performing workforce. This division is primarily funded through merit assessments to agencies, which are calculated on based on a percentage of employee salaries. This increase here is just attributed to across-the-board common changes and enabling us to maintain enterprise HR services at our current level and push forward with our strategic initiatives in that area. And finally, line 44.1 pertains to risk management services. The governor's FY26 recommendations include $1,515,754 in funding for House Bill 451 that was passed last year to provide a PTSD benefit to first responders. DOAS is administering this program to ensure that eligible state employees, as defined by statute, receive those benefits. We fully support all these recommendations, specifically those recommended by the governor to invest in our programs. And those are the final changes. With respect to the 1% reduction, DOAS typically does not receive state funds, but we will certainly follow up with our analyst for further discussion. Thank you to the committee for your continued support, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. In regards to the 409,000, we understand the mechanics of the additional funding and how it's derived, but what specifically will this division be allocating those funds towards?
Well, some of those funds are to support the COLAs and that were allocated in previous years, but they'll also help us move forward with strategic initiatives that we're already engaged in. One of the things that we're doing is we'll be implementing an enterprise brand strategy to promote the state as an employer of choice. It will also help us to continue our workforce strategies initiatives to build talent pipelines and partner with our educational institutions and military to broaden our recruitment efforts as a state. We'll also be working to maximize the new talent management and workforce planning tools that will be offered through Georgia at Work, which is our new enterprise ERP system that will be going into production hopefully in October.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments from the committee? Seeing none, thank you all for your presentation.
Thank you.
Georgia Technology Authority.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I am Shanzia Thomas, and I am honored to serve as your state CIO and the executive director for the Georgia Technology Authority. Our request can be found on page 18 of your tracking sheet under, with me is my CFO, Kevin Stanford, as well. Our request can be found on page 18 of your tracking sheet under 50.1 and 50.2. The governor has made no recommendations for additional funding for GTA and in the FY26 budget. However, on line 50.1, the House calls for on GTA to utilize $400,000 in the existing Technology Empowerment Fund interest to maintain the legacy unemployment insurance system at the Georgia Department of Labor until their new UI system is operational. Funds appropriated to TEF or to the TEF account accrue interest, and a portion of that interest is being used to support this expenditure. Modernization of the Georgia Department of Labor UI system is ongoing as a TEF project now. My team has oversight over that, and we received $5.5 million already for that in the FY24 budget. This is a multi-year project that will receive the bulk of its funding from the federal funds. On line 50.2, there are no new funds being added to the Technology Empowerment Fund. However, it does detail the amount appropriated as well as future commitments in order to assist DCH with the federal draw of CMS FMAP matching funds. I thank you for your time and your continued support, and I allow any questions if you may have some.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee? Can you briefly describe, as far as for the Department of Labor, on the new unemployment insurance system, as far as any progress on it?
Right now, we're in the development stage. There's been about a little over $22 million spent in federal funding. This project is set to go live in April of 26. The team is working diligently on this, so I believe they do need the additional funding to maintain the old system until we get that ready.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further questions, comments? Not seeing none. Thank you so much for your
Thank you.
presentation. Department of Banking and Finance.
Good morning. Kevin Hagler, Commissioner of the Department of Banking and Finance. Thank you for having me here today. I represent Section 14, more specifically page 19, and I would like to draw your attention to line item 60.2, which is well described as, and this is the only unique item for my department, increase funds for 2 examiners specializing in merchant acquirer limited purpose banks to meet increased workload due to new charters. This is a continuation from the discussion that we had during the amended budget process. Just wanted to give you a quick update and maybe a recap. The Merchant Acquirer Limited Purpose Bank Charter, which is super easy to say, is designed to both anchor the industry that is already here in Georgia, which is the merchant acquiring business, which does trillions of dollars worth of transactions every year. And I think 70% of all U.S. Credit card transactions flow through the Atlanta to Alpharetta corridor because of these companies. This charter is designed to give them direct access to Visa and MasterCard and those kind of payment networks, as opposed to having to pay their way through an independent bank. The idea being that it, again, helps these folks be in control of their destiny, as well as potentially saving them some expense there. This is, I think, really will help anchor that industry to Georgia, but also the newer part of that industry is largely based really worldwide, with the U.S. presence typically in New York and San Francisco. And we think this has, well, we know this has strong possibility of anchoring and bringing those entities to have an Atlanta presence as a bonus. We have one entity that we've chartered with this charter that's expected to go live in the next couple of months. We have another applicant that we are about to accept the application and conduct the on-site investigations of in the next month or two. We have another application that has been received but not yet accepted. And then we have 2 more entities that have explained that they plan to apply in the next month or two. So we're excited, maybe a little terrified, but it's a great time. We love it because it's really an economic development piece for us as well as regulation. These 2 positions would just be experts in that industry to help us with the not only the ongoing investigation, but then the ongoing examination process, as well as in the interim time help build out the exam program and the call reporting issuance there. And I would just also add that these 2 positions we will not only have annual assessments from the companies that we charter with this, but we'll also bill on an hourly basis for the examination work and ongoing monitoring. So these positions are expected to more than pay for themselves out of the industry's expenses. So that's my spiel. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Any comments or questions from the committee? You did a great job. No comments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate the
Yeah, thank you for your
consideration.
time. Commissioner of Insurance.
I'll be glad to leave. if
You're in
I-
trouble. It's my honorary chairman right here. He's my watchdog.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. I'm Martin Sullivan. Unfortunately, Commissioner King could not be with us this morning. I am his chief of staff, and I'd like to thank y'all for having me here today to speak about our agency. Sitting next to me is Chad DeBella. He's our CFO, and he's here to assist with any detailed questions you might have. I want to begin by acknowledging the adjustments made through our budget from DOAS. They are the regular changes that occur every year, year over year, and I will go ahead and skip over those unless y'all have any questions. Our first major request for fiscal year 2026 is a reallocation of just over $4.1 million to our Safety Fire Division from our insurance regulation. This is found in Section 29 on line 220.3 and reflected on line 221.3. This will help bring our elevator and building manufactured housing and other inspection items closer to 100% completion rate and allow us to provide for even more communities across Georgia with critical and life safety fire resources and education they need. I'd like to emphasize this is not additional funding to our agency. It is a movement of funds from one division to another. Did y'all see it? I got the money man.
Page 69.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
It starts on 69 and it continues over to page 70. I put the wrong one in here, so.
Oh, yeah.
Section 29.
Oh, yeah. Sorry about that. So those funds that we'll be transferring, it's 4.1, that is not new money. It's just moving from our insurance regulation side to our safety fire. Georgia has experienced massive growth as the #1 state to do business for more than a decade now, and that means more jobs, more cars on the road, and more families, and a host of other new construction go along with it. And anytime there's a new building, a new wing in a hospital, or a new elevator installation, they all require safety inspection. And with our current staffing levels, very few existing buildings undergo a routine inspection, and only 62% of elevators undergo their annual inspections. And our special hazard crew can only perform critical resources and inspections of new facilities, gas stations, blasting sites, and other major complaints. In total, the $4.1 million reallocation will fund approximately 45 new positions, greatly enhancing our current capabilities and putting us on track for 100% completion of all inspections, investigations, training, and education requests. Next, what's the new line?
The insurance reg.
Yes. On line 222.3, you will see.
Oh, wait, that's the one-time reduction.
Yeah. Oh.
220.4.
220.4, you'll see a one-time reduction for 3 vehicles and equipment totaling $77,000. We have no heartburn with this reduction and just wanted to acknowledge the line item. And then lastly, we ask for your continued support of our reinsurance program, which you'll find online. Is that the 222.3? Our state's reinsurance program has been incredibly successful, reducing premiums by approximately 10.1% for the average Georgian, with our rural areas seeing up to 30% premium savings. The reinsurance program has also incentivized insurance to participate in Georgia's market. Since 2008, the number of carriers have increased from 4 carriers to 10. Rather than spend the money in Washington to run a platform made by bureaucrats, we've kept that money here in Georgia, and we can invest what we know is best for our state, like the reinsurance program. I want to note that Georgia received approximately $756 million last year in federal dollars that went to the reinsurance program. All federal dollars are used before state funds. You'll notice that the requested amount is $50 million less in state funds compared to the previous year's budget. $15 million of that reduction comes from one-time expenses that were previously needed as startup costs for Georgia Access, our state-based exchange, and $35 million is offset by user fee agreements generated through Georgia Access. The House also recommended an additional reduction of $8 million. On behalf of the Commissioner, we would like to offer a word of caution about cutting reinsurance. We've had tremendous success in reducing the number of uninsured Georgians, with Georgia Access helping to enroll more than 1.5 million Georgians in coverage. And as the insurance population grows, so does the number of claims that are covered by reinsurance. There is some uncertainty about future conditions of federal spending on state programs, including reinsurance. We are not sure if current spending levels will increase, decrease, or stay the same, and we need to be prepared for each situation should it occur. If all the reinsurance funding is used up, consumers will have to foot the bill in the form of higher premiums. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to open up to any questions the committee may have.
Yeah, I guess the first question on the $8.8 million reduction, they give any type of where that money was going or the reason for that?
No, sir.
The House? Okay, thank you. Another question, given the federal review of spending streams, do you have any insight on how the new federal administration orders might potentially change things on how reinsurance programs are funded?
We are cautiously optimistic. We're talking to them all the time, but they have not given us one wording one way or the other.
Okay. And can you walk us through the specific reasons why claims cost and revenues are difficult to project on the reinsurance program?
So when the program started in 2018, we had around just shy of 500,000 people in the marketplace in Georgia. Now with 1.5 million last year, we were at 1.2 million. Just as you get more people insured, you're going to start getting more claims. So we have a roughly idea, and we have projections, and we're on track to meet the projections. But if the claims go up, or they can always go down depending on situations. That's why. So we have an idea, but depending if there are more car accidents or anything like that, it can cause those projections to be completely wrong easily.
Makes sense. Thank you. Senator Anderson.
Mr. Sullivan, I'm glad you brought up elevators. Can you give us an update on when you're going to fix the elevator in the Capitol?
Sir, we are in charge of inspecting them. I would recommend asking GBA when they will be fixed.
Okay. Really, I was just picking at you there. But, due to Helene, have you got any update on, has all the people that did have insurance have been covered and have the claims paid in full?
We are working every day with the insurance companies. They know we are taking this situation very seriously. We had received word the other day, one particular company was trying to tell consumers if they had not completed their repairs by next date, it would not be covered. We sent the insurance company a nicely worded letter informing them that was illegal, and if they tried to enforce that, they would receive major fines. We are working daily with anybody who has issues, and if you have any constituents that are having a hard time with their insurance company, we encourage you to have them reach out to our office. Same with you, Senator Goodman. I don't think Helene, well, I guess Gwinnett and Atlanta had some issues as well, but we are working diligently. We have 40 people in our office that do nothing but work with to fight the insurance companies, and we recover about $20 million a year for the consumers. So if you have any issues from your consumers about it, we will get on it right away.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, no, Gwinnett was very lucky with that storm.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think you kind of answered some of this, but when the commissioner was here before, he mentioned that if there were companies that were overcharging, that he would get right on this and make sure that they complied. And with this reduction in force, I think you said 45 new positions or whatever, with this reduction, would that will hinder you all from doing that? I'm real concerned about this insurance. Auto insurance, home insurance, it goes up, and people can't really afford to do it. And when you call the insurance company, they really don't want to pay. And so we have people who can hardly buy groceries and things, and they cannot afford this high insurance premium.
No, ma'am, we don't disagree. If you have any constituents that are having a hard time getting their insurance to pay, please reach out to our office, and I'll make sure we have somebody come by today to make sure you know the best way to get in touch with us. It is a very high concern of ours. If we find our office has wide latitude to hold insurance companies accountable, and I can tell you we are continually doing looking into all these companies to make sure they're following all the rules and regulations of Georgia. Since the commissioner's been in office, we have fined insurance companies over $20 million, and we are continuously looking to make sure they're following all proper rules and regulations. But if your constituents are having issues, please do not hesitate to reach out so we can help them.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions, comments?
I just want to thank you for your office for always taking my calls and trying to help my constituents. I know there's a 68-year-old widow lady in Valdosta whose insurance was canceled, and your office helped to get that rectified. But one of the things, I just had a call yesterday from somebody that has been, they've been with the same insurance company for 28 years, and after the hurricane, the insurance company canceled their insurance. Just a comment on that. I don't know how we go about addressing, but we're seeing it a lot in our areas that the hurricane was hit. That, you know,
if you can make sure, if you can get us her cancellation letter, that way we can look at it to make sure they're canceling it for all the right legal reasons and not using a back way to try and do it. We had an issue with a company not too long ago that sent out a bunch of cancellation notices that went against the law, and we informed them they were either going to reinstate it, and I believe our legal counsel's in the back, and he can tell me exactly, but they sent out probably about 500 to 1,000 illegal cancellation notices, and we could have fined them up to $5,000 each one if they did not properly reinstate the insurance. So we want to make sure that While we can't tell private business, you can't do that, we want to make sure they're following all the laws and regulations that are in place to make sure they're doing it properly and to make sure your constituents have the ability to get proper insurance in time before they're cut off.
One more comment, if you don't
Sure.
mind, Mr. Chairman. We need to figure out a way to get more insurance for churches as well.
That is something we're starting to see, and that's actually a conversation we're starting to have at the NAIC as well, the National Association of Insurance Commissioners, because we're starting to see it nationwide.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Sullivan, when people get paid, is it where if a company's done work for them, I've had some cases where people have done tree removal or off a house and all, but they was out of state, but at the same time, the insurance company sent the person the money, but the check was not made out to both of them. So do we have any way to make sure that people that do provide a service are paid?
If you've got yes, sir. If you've got I'll make sure Bryce and myself reach out to you this afternoon,
Okay.
and we can sit down and talk about that specific issue. If it's a specific case, if we can get with the insurance company to fix it, or if it looks like it possibly could be fraud, that we could get our investigators involved as well.
Okay, all right. Get in touch with me this
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and the committee, and sorry about having the wrong numbers.
No, you're good. Thank you. Department of Labor.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. We appreciate this opportunity to present to you this morning. If you'll indulge me for just a couple of minutes, I'm going to give you a little bit of background before we get to our asks. When Commissioner Thompson and our team came into the office in January 2023, we found a department that was very siloed internally, very little coordination between divisions and no shared visions. Processing claims on a system built in 1982 was difficult enough, but training had lapsed. There was a lot of inconsistency, and so when the pandemic hit, staff was really overwhelmed by the volumes of claims and appeals, which went up over 1,000%. Our biggest challenge, of course, was the loss of our leader and our coach, Commissioner Bruce Thompson, after an 8-month battle with pancreatic cancer. But it is a testament to his vision and his leadership that he assembled before he passed a phenomenal team of leaders that has continued to carry on his vision. I'm proud to say that today we've made more progress at the Department of Labor in 2 years than I think anyone could have thought possible. We have turned the culture around to one that is collaborative. We have eliminated those internal silos, and we have an organization that now has a shared vision. Employee morale has skyrocketed. They feel valued, they feel listened to, and frankly, a number of them have been the catalyst for some of the changes that we have made internally that have made such progress. As a result of the focus on training and process improvements, we're now doing a lot more with a much smaller staff. In January 2023, we had roughly 960 employees. Today, we are roughly 750. And so all the progress that we have made has come despite a significant reduction in headcount. Now, I will say that most of that reduction has come through attrition primarily. As people have retired or transferred out of the agency, we have simply asked the remaining staff to take on a little bit more of the burden, and they have done that. Even so, just a year ago, we were running about 30 days behind in processing claims, which generated a lot of cost to your offices. The existing system, as I mentioned, was built in 1982, And it's just a very labor-intensive, redundant system with a lot of manual processes. We're in the process of transitioning from our outdated system, as GTA mentioned, going to a new modernized UI system that moves us away from our mainframe COBOL technology and to a cloud-based system and a brand new UI modernization platform. On our modernization project, we are projected to go live in April 2026, and it's going to be a game changer for our agency staff and for the customers of Georgia. Our new system, dubbed UI Inspire, will be much more streamlined, eliminate a lot of manual process, and allow for better customer service and updates, and will be much more intuitive. This new system will also allow us to better communicate with customers in ways that are convenient for them, and it will allow GDOL to adapt more quickly to changes in technology, and probably to the gratitude of this committee and many others, it will allow us to respond more accurately and efficiently to audits, because right now the system is so old it's simply nearly impossible to get some data out of it. Now, I would also be remiss if I did not thank Governor Kemp and the members of the General Assembly for the investment they have made in us in recent years that have allowed us to upgrade our facilities around the state, making them a much more welcoming place for our customers to come in and our employees to work. And we're very grateful for that investment. And so we are continuing to strive to be the most transparent, responsive, and customer-centered agency in the state. And with that said, I'm now going to turn the time over to our outstanding CFO, Kate Furman, to detail our budget asks.
Thank you, Commissioner. I asked Lewis to change outstanding to marginal, but he refused to do it. So anyway, our part of the tracking document begins on page 29 at the very bottom of the page. We have a statewide adjustment for DOAS, about $1,446. On the following page, we have another statewide adjustment for TeamWorks billings of $2,985. We have increased funding for 3 accountants and related operations. Those accountants would selfishly work in my finance unit, and I desperately need the accounting expertise. And those are in for about $300,000. That would cover salaries, benefits, as well as operating costs. We have also requested funding for, this is leadership training. 42% of our existing executive leadership team is eligible for retirement. So we want to identify high potential upcoming leaders and get them ready to take our places. That amount is $62,700. And we also have a request to increase funding for 2 constituent services representatives, and the operating funds for those, that's about $231,000, or exactly $231,797, and those individuals would help with some of our more complicated cases. Some cases can involve appeals and other kinds of adjudication, so we definitely would like to be able to answer those types of complex questions for your constituents. And then our last adjustment is on page 31, and that has to do with an adjustment to agency premiums, again for Department of Administrative Services, for $6,860. We'll take any questions you have.
Thank you. Any comments, questions from the committee? As far as the 62,700, as far as the training internally, which I think that's great, trying to promote within. Majority of those funds, will it go towards the leadership training?
Exactly. They all actually would. We would intend to assess high potential individuals to really look at what everybody has strengths and weaknesses, right? So we want to look at where do they need, some help, where are they very strong, where they could help their peers, and then begin down that road of helping them take on the leadership roles.
Thank you. And then as far as for the capital projects, the $2 million, what will that knock off your list?
That will help us with HVAC systems. That we have some HVAC systems that are over 15 years old. And I'm a native Georgian, so I've been all over Georgia. When you get in July in Albany and other places, Tifton, it gets pretty warm down there. I grew up in Macon in an unair-conditioned house, so I have real sympathy for losing air conditioning systems. So it's primarily for those things, but it's also things just to maintain buildings. We have some roofs that kind of leak on occasion. That water intrudes and creates big dollar kind of issues if you don't address it. So it's for those types of things.
And do y'all have like a comprehensive plan list, like as far as total dollars for the projects y'all are looking at?
Yes, we do. We have a planning list. I can get that over to you.
Okay, that'd be great.
Okay.
And then as far as acting commissioner, just curious, is there an appointment coming, or is it an election? Or this is just something I'm curious about. So.
Tune in around 11:45 today. The governor's got a press conference.
That was odd timing, huh?
Odd
Good answer, thank you.
Yeah.
Senator Anderson.
Do we own all the buildings that y'all in, or do y'all rent them?
We do not.
No, sir. We've actually, when Commissioner Thompson and our team came in January 2023, we had 39 career centers around the state. We have consolidated 6 of those, 6 that were very low foot traffic. The personnel transferred to other nearby career centers, so we didn't actually lose staff on that. But roughly right now, we have a mix of about 15 owned properties and 19 leased properties. So all the money that we're talking about would obviously go to the owned properties.
Owned property, okay.
Any further comments or questions? I know you mentioned a year ago you were about 30 days behind. Where are y'all? Do y'all have it? Where y'all are at now?
Yeah.
I'm so glad you asked that, Chairman. No, this is something I am just unbelievably proud of. Again, I mean, I mentioned earlier that we have seen a staff reduction from about 960 to about 750, which has obviously created a lot of pressure on those that are still at the organization. We have gone through an intensive process of identifying, redundancies in the system and figuring out where our bottlenecks are. A year ago, we were processing claims between 15 and 35 days behind. Today, we are processing all claims within 48 hours, and 3 of the 4 days so far, going back to last week, 3 of the last 4 days, we've been processing claims on the same days that they have come in. And I'll also add that when we first came in, we had an appeals backlog of over 100,000. It was 3.5 years behind. We are now down to about 4,000 appeals and about 3 months out.
Yeah, I commend your office on what y'all have done. I came into the legislature, my first session was 2021, and 2021, especially 2022, it kind of bled over, but continual, constituents calling with issues, and now I get 0. So thank y'all for what y'all have done.
Thank you.
Well, we have worked very hard to eliminate the 236 satellite offices around the state, because I know your offices were getting blown up for a long time.
Yeah. Well, thank y'all.
Thank
Any
you.
further comments, questions?
Just tell them Bruce would be proud of them.
Why don't you tell them that, Senator Goodman?
I just want, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say Bruce would be proud of y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you. We very much appreciate that.
I just want to say thank you all for all that you've been doing at that department. We had a rough time, especially coming out of COVID. We had a rough time with someone responding
Yes, ma'am.
at that department, and we were getting calls every day, all day, concerning payments from constituents. So, and we don't get those now. So we appreciate it.
Well, thank you. And if I might take just about 30 seconds on that, I want to reiterate, the system that we're processing claims on right now that we're moving out of was built in 1982. And when the pandemic hit, we saw our daily claims go from about 11 to 1,500 to over 15,000 on this very ancient system. And so I just wanted to stress that the staff that we have at the Department of Labor are some of the hardest working, most diligent, conscientious staff that you will meet anywhere in the state. And those delays, the lack of communication was not a lack of desire to serve. It was not apathy. It was simply the system was overwhelmed. So we have a phenomenal staff, and it has just been absolutely a privilege of a lifetime to lead them.
And at the risk of overselling, Bruce, when you mentioned Commissioner Thompson, I have to say this. So we are on track this year to collect and deposit into state treasury about $30 million. And so the request we're asking for is just under $1 million. So I would ask you to consider that we're only asking for 1/30 of our money back. So thank you.
Not bad. Thank you all very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Mr. Chairman, Committee.
Department of Revenue.
Good morning, Chairman Dixon and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today on the governor's recommendations and the House's changes for the Department of Revenue for the fiscal year 2026 budget. My name is Frank O'Connell, and I serve as the State Revenue Commissioner, and I'm joined today by our Chief Financial Officer, Keisha Beavers. Also here today is Chester Cook, Deputy Commissioner, and Joe Snowden, our Director of External Affairs and Communications. Now, the department's items for this year, 2026, on pages 32 to 39 of the tracking sheet in section 42. I'll start with Department Administration. We have a Georgia Building Authority rent increase on line 308.3. And you'll see an increase of $7,886 for this rent. This is due to our office relocation resulting from the construction on Capitol Hill. And we've since been moved to the 47 Trinity Washington building. And the higher rent reflects an increase in the square footage of the space that we've been given. So our annual lease will rise from $11,437 to $24,650. Next, on page 34, Local Government Services, line 311.3, you'll see a reduction of $64,523 for the Fireworks Trust Fund, and this reflects a lower than expected fireworks excise tax collection. Now on page 35, motor vehicle registration and titling, line 313.3, there's an increase of $2,624,900 for maintenance and support of the driver record and integrated vehicle enterprise system that we call DRIVES. That's our motor vehicle tag and title system. It's also the same system used by DDS for driver's licenses. We've entered into a 7-year contract extension with our vendor, Fast Enterprises, beginning in fiscal 25, and this is following the expiration of the previous contract in June 2023 and a 1-year extension through June 2024. Currently, we lack sufficient funding to absorb the cost for additional support and the increasing cost of maintaining the system. Our vendor shifted from a flat rate to a per full-time equivalent rate for our contracts. We did have 15 full-time equivalents under the prior contract, and since we're being charged by FTEs, the year 7 rate would be $3.7 million, and we would have 10 support FTEs from our vendor. On line 313.4, you'll see a $315,619 increase for postage costs related to motor vehicle registration and licensing production. Our vendor, Georgia Correctional Industries, and we get our plates and tags through them. They've requested a 0.8% increase based on the producer price index, and for an increase in postage costs due to a Postal Service rate hike effective July 14th, 2024. The producer price increase projects to be an increase in costs of $73,229, and the Postal Service hike is expected to add $531,688, bringing the total cost increase to $604,916. And we're requesting $315,619. And as I mentioned, this is for the contract for motor vehicle tags, for the annual decals, the registration cards, and the temporary operating permits, which are essential to our motor vehicle division operations. Of course, not being able to fund this appropriately would impact our ability to serve Georgia residents. On page 37, under tax compliance, on line 315.3, and an increase of $3,595,426 is our request for maintenance and support of the integrated tax system. We use the same vendor for the integrated tax system that we use to process probably 4 or 5 million tax returns every year. It's Fast Enterprises, and they're also the developer of the system. This request follows a recent extension of our contract with Fast, which covers the system for the next 4 years. We had put out an RFP, or an RFI, excuse me, about a year and a half to 2 years ago. Because of the previous contract had expired, and we wanted to see what other vendors were out there that could support Georgia's system. Fast Enterprises is like the Microsoft of state tax systems. 34 of the 50 states use Fast Enterprises. At the time we did the RFI, we learned that there really wasn't another mature system out there, although there were 2 states that were implementing new systems with different vendors, one being Maryland, one being New Mexico, and extending this contract for an additional 4 years will give time for those implementations to be completed and for us to see what other vendors might be out there that could realistically support our system. Now, under the prior contract in fiscal 24, we had 9 support full-time equivalents. In fiscal 25, we're requesting an increase to 12 full-time equivalents, and this would support, maintenance of the system, implementation of legislative updates, and I'll, if I was in your situation, your shoes, sitting where you are, I'd want to have something to compare our request with. And so I asked our Chief Information Officer, of those other states that use the same vendor, how many full-time equivalents do they pay for? And we get to look at each other's contracts, and so, we know everybody's charged based on full-time equivalents. We're requesting an increase to 12 full-time equivalents. The average, we were able to get information on, I believe, 31 other states, and the average of those 31 other states with 17 full-time equivalents. So we would still be at only 70% of the average. Just looking at a couple surrounding states, Tennessee has 18 FTEs, South Carolina 21, Alabama 22. Obviously, all of them are smaller in terms of population, and that would enable us to keep implementing the tax credit changes and maintaining the system. Now, you also mentioned 1% budget reduction, efficiency planning, and I don't have items for you at this time, but we'll have items and suggestions for you by the deadline of tomorrow. That completes my overview of changes for our budget for fiscal 26. We appreciate your support and partnership, and we support the governor's recommendations, and now I stand ready to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions, comments from committee? I've got one question with forest land protection grants.
Yes, sir.
What's your current application submission amount look like in total?
Keisha, do you have that information?
I can pull that information up to tell you what we've paid out for this fiscal year. Just give me a moment.
That would be great. Is that application period, is it closed or is it still open?
It's still open.
Still open? Okay. Any further comments, questions from committee?
Commissioner, appreciate what y'all do. Every time I call, I get a response very quick. Thank you so much. How many vacancies do you have now in your department?
I believe is it approximately 42 that we're currently recruiting for, maybe an additional 14, so around 50 vacancies in the department, which is significantly less than a couple of years ago. It's been a lot easier to recruit and retain. And I'll just note, when I first came to the department over 20 years ago, I think we had about 1,350. Now our staffing is a little bit over 1,000, and a lot of that is the efficiencies from technology.
The information you requested, the total disbursement for year to date is $16,110,833.12. And this was from our information that we presented in our monthly budget back in February. And we'll provide a more recent update for March.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further comments, questions from committee? Well, thank you all so much.
Thank you, sir. And I got a little bit of training from the last time I used the microphone. I had no problems this time. So.
Great job. Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. Georgia Building Authority.
I feel a little bit like Karnak. I can almost anticipate one of the questions. I'm just wondering from Senator Anderson. So, my name is Gerald Pilgrim, and I'm the Chief of Staff of the Georgia Building Authority. Marty Smith, the state property officer, couldn't be here. He had a death in his family, so he's at a funeral this morning. So, but just want to kind of go through. The Building Authority is made up, there's 3 agencies with that. GISFIC, which is the Financing and Investment Commission, the Construction Division, the State Properties Commission, and the Georgia Building Authority. We kind of operate as, we're 3 separate entities, but we're all one group, one umbrella. We use shared services, our legal departments, our HR, everything to try to bring additional efficiencies to the state. But give you just a quick thing about the GISFIC. We are currently managing 210 projects throughout the state of Georgia. That's $4.5 billion in projects. And that was not counting the projects, about the $500 million in projects that were in the amended budget and the upcoming budget. So we're pretty proud of the work that we're able to do with those projects throughout the state. We have 225 hard bid projects and 73 construction manager projects, which are usually the larger, over $10 million and above projects. So pretty substantial on those. Just kind of one little quick brag that you just want to do. And before 2021, our average fee for construction managers was 12.29%. We looked at reevaluating how the state did business, letting before agencies and GISFIC would evaluate it, and it was just based on on who they wanted to use, who was the best interview. And we decided we shortlist the projects to the top 5 general contractors, top 3 general contractors that have the best resume for that particular job. Then we included fee as a factor. We have been able to reduce our fee to the average fee is now 8.5%. So almost a 30% reduction in fee. And we've had additional participation from general contractors. So this has returned equivalent since 2021, about $30 million that goes directly back into state projects. So that money, none of the money comes out from, we don't retain any of the funds. GISFIC is completely funded by the interest earnings off the cash. So we're proud of what we're able to do with that. In addition, our finance side, our accounting side, there are 345 agency managed projects. And they're managing all the funds and all the cash for that. That's $1.3 billion. So we've got a lot of cash going through into that and keeping up and making sure we treat the cash that was appropriated the same as what the bond cash was done. So with OPB's guidance, the financing side of Diana Pope, every dollar that was received there, we give the same reporting for the cash that's appropriated to us as we do the bonds. So we're making sure we're still equivalent. So we've been very fortunate. State's been in a great position for have cash, but just so y'all know that y'all have the same accounting principles there. We also have a design review group that reviews all state projects, even on state land. The Rivian project that was going to go on state property, if that ever comes to fruition, they will review that for design to make sure it meets life safety and everything along that line. So they're doing projects throughout there. So kind of a broad area for that. The Properties Commission, which I know y'all are all familiar with the Properties Commission, but just to highlight, this does not include Board of Regents or Department of Transportation. There are just under 14,000 buildings within our portfolio through the state. Total value is just over $37 billion in insured value. We have 891,000 acres of owned or leased land, and we have 2,320 leases within the portfolio. Total square foot is 34 million square feet of leases. So what's unique about it is, and we also collect money for like the railroad that rents the property from us and other things or leases in there. Properties Commission's collected about $16.5 million from that. We have, in this year alone, we have done 98 leases. And because we do a multi-year lease, we're able to go to the market a little bit better. And because we have changed in 2014, we've been able to give cost avoidance to get 17% below market on these leases because of our buying capacity and because we've been able to do a long-term lease with it, which just this year alone is $6 million in savings. And since 2013, that's been $430 million in cost avoidance. What's unique about the Properties Commission, and we'll talk about that with GBA, is 100% of the budget of the Properties Commission is funded by the Georgia Building Authority, which is the rents on Capitol Hill. Last year, y'all did give us a rate increase on Capitol Hill. We had sold 2 Peachtree. We had lost a lot of our square footages for rents, and we had to go back that, you know, a lot of the things that we do, you know, what we do with our dollars, and kind of give y'all a breakdown that 30% is maintenance, and that does include the elevator contract that we'll talk about in a second, Senator. But maintenance, but our largest percentage of our budget is 30% goes to the Department of Public Safety for the security on Capitol Hill. So when you're looking at that, we're pretty, you know, we try to run lean. 10% is for administrative costs, and that includes our accounting. We compare our was $20 a foot with 30% going to there. 21% of our rents go to not only the Properties Commission, the state capitol, and other non-revenue producing properties. We don't charge rent for anything within inside the state capitol. Any of the operations state capitol, that is totally operated from there. And our employees are paying about $20 a month for parking. Compared to Atlanta, just outside here, the average is over $35 a foot, and 5% of their costs go to security, and the average employee is paying $110 a month. So hope we're showing that we're good stewards with what we've been given and kind of going from there. Kind of the thing that I think y'all probably wanted most of those last year, y'all approved a major project on Capitol Hill. We've got a new legislative office building coming. Have y'all seen, we can show is the building right next to the Ag building. We tore that down, and the old number 1 building, which was GBA's old office, and we are going vertical as of today. So we're going to see still going up. I have a countdown on my clock right now. It's about 592 days before we open the legislative office building. So we're rolling fast on that. And we just completed the first phase of the renovation in the Capitol, which was the regilding of the dome, and then some of the office renovations I think y'all have seen in the Lieutenant Governor's office, and the House Clerk's office. So we start April 5th on a renovation in the chambers. So we're going to refresh the chambers, get some new technology in the chambers where y'all are going to be able to use your desk and charge your phones at your desk. The microphones will be a better, you'll have a real system where they'll go back in and y'all don't have to try to stuff them in. We'll get new carpet, the paint will be refreshed, there'll be some reworking to the rostrum. So all that starts April 5th and has to be done by October 31st. So we're pretty fast. But want to share with y'all the legislative office building.
I hate to move you along, but we're down to about 10 minutes, and I got 4. I'm very interested in this, so I would love to hear offline. But if we could go to the capital projects.
We'll do that, and I'm just going to leave up a picture of a committee room for you that will be in without any blocked views for future reference.
Oh, yeah, that looks great.
Colors, but we're there. The capital projects we have, the governor's recommendation was for the $44 million and the new agriculture building, which is item, it's on page 5 of y'all's capital projects. It's 380.75. We got design money for that project last year, and so this is just the continuation of that project to be able to start to renovate that, to get Commissioner Harper where he is currently at the health building, GTA building is, and get him back into that building, so a complete renovation on that. And then the House did include additional money, which was the House recommendation, which was on page 7 of the capital thing. It's 380.99 was $17 million. The House is concerned about the scope of the capital increasing, and to make sure that we had additional monies for that to make sure it's covered for there. That was a House recommendation, not part of the governor's recommendation, and OPB is in the room, and I would never go against OPB on their recommendation. So, but I defer to the House and Senate on anything that they come up with.
Did they give any details of the 17 million increase?
The just overall concerns that we increased some of that there's increased scope, that we were looking at just doing some carpet and lighting in some of the rooms, but now we're retaining a lot more offices in the Capitol. So the Capitol does have a lot more scope. I think that they are looking at some of the other stuff that they think that we need additional room in the legislative building. So in the new legislative building, that could be for future growth, but I don't have a lot of details on that.
Okay, thank you.
So sorry about that.
No, you're fine. Any comments, questions?
Real quick, about 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Real quick, I just wanted to say, is it true that in this new legislative office building that our admins are going to be in cubicles and they're not going to be like close to us in our offices and all that? Because
currently they're in cubicles now, so there'll be a desk, working stations outside of every office, so in the office areas. So in the Senate there will be there'll be a row, a bank of offices, and then right outside the offices would be where the administrative assistants would sit. Okay. So they would be right there with them.
Okay, so they're not going to be all in a bank of cubicles or whatever?
No, sir. No, there is, it would be large cubicle or large seating areas, but the office space, it's open. It's an open floor plan. So you may have, every member would have a window office that is in the legislative office building, and then right outside their office would be where their administrative assistant sits.
Okay. I'll get with them.
Go ahead. You got a question? Senator Anderson?
Can you get us a printout of the building and everything?
Yes, sir.
And maybe, I'm just suggesting, maybe just put it on our desk in the Senate chambers for everybody to see.
Ooh.
But anyway, also, what's the plans for this building?
At this point, there are, I think last year there was one of the recommendations that we had, we just gave a thing to renovate this building for future state offices. I think the governor and the General Assembly both last year thought that we would not be able to be ready for this building until 2027. So that would be for a future administration to decide what's the best use of this building.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Sorry, I ran long, sir.
No, you're good. And could I see, do y'all have drawings of those legislative offices, how that's set up?
Yes, sir.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. And just so you know that the Senate has met with it, they've gone through the House and Senate have met with those to help design how they're laid out. So
Yeah.
be glad to share that with you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your presentation. Secretary of State's office is up next.
This one. Thank you. Good morning. Thanks for having us. First off, my apologies for the secretary not being here this morning. He was not available to make it, but I hope we're an acceptable substitute. My name is Maggie Hasty. I'm the Deputy Chief of Staff, and with me I have Matthew Tizer, who's the Deputy Chief Operating Officer. So thank you all for having us. Throughout our section of the budget, you will see the same statewide adjustments to TeamWorks billings and DOAS premiums. For the sake of time, I'm not going to go through all of those. The rest of the items on my presentation are going to be just additional requests, so they're not going to be in your packet. The very first thing that I would like to discuss is the funding for elections. If you look under line item 319.1000, on page 40, sorry. It has the total state funds, total federal funds, total agency funds. Those federal funds are HAVA dollars that we've received in years past, but we have not received them anymore. We don't anticipate getting that funding going forward, so we're requesting that you backfill those with state dollars so we can retain the same level of funding. The next request is additional funding for risk limiting audits. In this upcoming fiscal year, we'll have at least 2 statewide elections, the 2 Public Service Commission seats on the November 2025 ballot, as well as the primary election in May of 2026. So in prior election cycles, we've used those federal HAVA dollars to cover the cost of these RLA audits, but there's been no indication of the additional HAVA funding being dispersed next year, so we're asking to cover the cost of those audits. It'd be approximately $245,000 for the fiscal year, and we would like those to become recurring funds, so that way we can keep doing this. 125 of that would be for the license for the RLA audit, and then $40,000 would be for election support staff. We're also requesting additional funds for the optical character recognition audit. That would be approximately $774,500 for FY26. Funding was provided last fiscal year, and that meant that we were able to pull off this one-of-a-kind 100% optical character recognition audit, so it confirmed the readable text on every single ballot in every single race across the state, from president to state senate down to county coroner. A full copy of that audit report is available online, and we're happy to send that to the members of the committee as well. In addition, for anyone who still has doubts, they can go online and look at the ballot images for free. In addition to these audits, we're also requesting additional election staff. We have a really excellent elections team that pulled off a great election, but we need more highly talented workers whose skills can ensure election security and compliance with our new election laws. The full request is for 11 different permanent election staff that will focus on elections compliance and county training. Additionally, we're requesting more technical focused staff, including one Salesforce administrator for our Jarvis system, as well as additional IT security personnel and a chief information security officer, and the costs for those can be seen on the screen. We're also requesting $1.4 million to replace IT hardware. This was a necessary cost that had to be spent as the support of the hardware was beyond end of life. This is data center infrastructure, all of which had hardware that needed to be replaced. The servers are duplicated in the event of an emergency. They house all internal data as well as our corporations system and all of the licensing system on our old licensing system. So we really could not afford to lose any of this data when the support expired, and as a result we had to replace that hardware before we got the funding, so we're just asking for funding to cover the cost of that. We also had to replace the IT networking equipment as it was also reaching end of life. Just IT is very vital to the function of the agency, so we're asking for funding for that. We're also requesting funding for an additional Salesforce administrator for our professional licensing division, who's focused solely on ensuring that our licensing system is flexible to any changes in the professional licensing law, so that way we can maintain our goal system and keep it malleable to meet the needs of Georgia. We would like to hire them with a salary of $175,000. As you may know, we are in the process of reforming the licensing system, both on our end with technology, but also on the legislature side with licensing bills coming through. So this slide includes some one-time costs to update the licensing software to get all the licensees onto the same system, this new goals system, in a way that complies with the new law changes. And then briefly, I'd like to just touch on something from last year's SB 189 requirement to remove the QR code from the ballot. We did not receive any funding for this in the amended budget. And as it currently stands, we're estimating the full cost of the project to be about almost $66 million. Our current system is in the 7th year of a 10-year contract. We'll start to put that contract out for rebidding in 2028. SB 189 requires us to make several expensive changes to the system for the last 2 years of the contract, primarily purchasing new printers and new scanners. The Secretary would ask that we be mindful of the taxpayers' money and consider looking at alternative solutions to ensure continued trust, both for the voters and for fiscal responsibility. We can continue to do an audit of the human readable text for every statewide election. The full costs includes updating the software, purchasing and delivering the hardware, and acceptance testing the machines. This number is a conservative estimate based off of the full list price, and we're hoping that we would be able to negotiate down. But we would like to request that the General Assembly consider alternative options to this costly approach. One option is to do nothing and wait until the contract is completed, so that way we can redirect the money towards purchasing the best possible system on the market at the conclusion of the contract. election systems are getting better every year, and we could eventually move to a system that will be purchased through a hard bid and utilize whatever the latest technology is at that point in time. The last alternative is to update the machines to the newest version of the software. This would reduce the cost to about $15 million. It would be primarily just staffing to get people out to all of the counties. They would have to go out to each county individually because our machines are not connected to the internet, so there's no way to update the software just remotely. You'd have to go and touch each individual machine. The software would be provided for free from the vendor, so it would just be staffing costs and transportation, lodging. This change would help ensure continued voter confidence without drastically changing the voting system and spending money on hardware that could entirely be replaced within 2 years. Any of these alternatives would require an update to the law, so it's important just that the Appropriations Committee consider working with the Ethics Committee to find a solution that everyone can agree on, and we'll of course leave that decision up to the General Assembly. And with that, I open it up to questions from the committee.
Thank you for your presentation. Any questions, comments from the committee? Seeing none, thank you all so much.
Thank you.
The Medical Cannabis Commission.
Good morning, Chairman Dixon and members of the committee. I'm Andrew Turnage. I'm the Executive Director for the Georgia Access to Medical Cannabis Commission. Appreciate the opportunity to come and talk to you about the Commission's fiscal year 2026 budget. Our budget begins at section 324.1. The program overview begins at the bottom of page 43 of 48. And the agency budget actually begins at the top of the following page. That's the top of page 44 of 48. Looking at the top of page 44, you can see the commission has 4 items here. I'll just touch briefly on these. The first is an increase for staff that are participants in the teacher's retirement system. You can see the $251 increase there. The second item, 324.2, is the insurance increases that are consistent for state agencies with DOAS. The third item, 324.3, is an increase in funds for GBA rent. We were one of the agencies impacted by the demolition of 7 Martin Luther King. We have since relocated to 254 Washington. So this actually reflects the increase in the rent for the new space. I will just point out, appreciate the question and the heads up, by the way, on identifying funding. And we're, I believe you said 1% or 2% of a budget may be in consideration for
1%.
1%. Our rent increase, actual increase is $85,000. I think you can see that the increase that's listed is $67,500. That just happens to work out to about 2%. So I'll just go ahead and identify that as a standout looking at the request versus actual for the agency. And I would make the recommendation that that be the item that's considered for the commission as it relates to that request. And the final item is 324.4. This indicates a change that the House recommended. We appreciate the considerations by the Governor's Office for our continuation budget, and we appreciate the recommendations from the House for these increased retention initiatives. Just want to share with members a little bit of history about the Commission's budget as a little bit of a historical overview, if I may, Mr. Chairman, just to share some background. This is actually the 8th fiscal year for this commission. The Georgia's Hope Act was passed in 2019, and in FY19, the commission did not receive any appropriation funds. In FY20, the commission did not receive any appropriations for staffing positions. And in FY21, the commission did receive appropriations for 3 staff positions, and those 3 positions were me, myself, and I. And it has been a journey from that fiscal year to present. We really appreciate, again, for FY25, what we consider the commission being fully funded for the first time. And as many of you are aware, a new industry in Georgia and the staff that have worked very hard for this agency from its onset. But I think it's really important to note that for all of the fiscal years prior to now, the funding for the commission's positions have been based on budget received. And in many cases, those salary positions are funded at the dollar level available and not necessarily at the job title or the pay scale that is associated with the responsibility level that staff have. And that does include my position as well. So we humbly have presented this information for consideration. Really appreciate, again, the opportunity to present on it and ask for the item that you see in that fourth and final item of an increase for merit-based initiatives. And the House recommendation, as you can see, is 121,957. Just as a final note, I'll also just refer you to copies of the Commission's annual report. I brought you copies of those for your review. It's not a part of a presentation on the screen, but I just would simply like to note that we are very mindful. We do a very good job of running a fiscally conservative budget at the Commission. We don't have a lot of overhead. We don't have a lot of funding. But what we do have is a directly responsive budget request. In our revenue collections, we project for FY26 a revenue collection of 1.725. And so with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll be happy to answer any questions to the best of my ability.
Yeah, thank you so much for your presentation. On the salary increases, it's my understanding that OPB and the governor's office typically review that or adjust salaries like in the fall. What was the reasoning for the House to add that in at this time?
So the same budget was presented to all three. The commission, of course, is governed by appointees from the governor's office, the House, and the Senate. The information that you see in the commission's annual report reflects that increase in the personal services line. Did meet with the governor's office and discuss this item in advance as well. I don't know why the information was added by the House. I can't speak to that.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions, comments from the committee? And then as far as the Director of Legal Services and your salary, the additional $60,000, what would that be allocated towards as far as that increase?
As far as the increase, that would be for salary increases for insurance and benefits for those positions.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I don't see any other comments or questions. Great job. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for the opportunity to present and your consideration.
We got next up is the Professional Land Surveyors and Engineers Board.
I'm Darren Mickler. I'm the Executive Director of Professional Engineers and Land Surveyors Board. We are, I guess, the newest state agency. We were formed in 22. We did not get a budget at all in 22. In 23, actually FY24, we got enough money to buy a licensing software system that we put into place. It allows us to be completely paperless, and everyone can pay online for everything. So it's really worked out well for us. We got our first budget in FY25. So we have staffed. We bought office space, or we rented office space at 229 Peachtree. On the 18th floor, ACEC, which is one of our main professional societies, also has space on that floor. So the space that we have, it's a good space, but it lacks any sort of break room, no sink, no water, anything like that. So we are looking at a long-term lease, and our expectation is probably going to double our rent for about 5 years. don't have a request in on our paperwork, and I'm sorry, we're just under cannabis. We start on page 44 actually. Then we go into 45. We have been bringing in about 3.2 million a year, and our appropriations were 1.36. So we think that it would probably cost us about $100,000 additional to do the upgrades we'd like to do on our property. That's, I think we can handle pretty much everything else we need to do. I would just mention, I don't know if any of you are aware of our situation with land surveyors. We're approaching a critical time in that we now have about 770 land surveyors in the whole state. 20 years ago, we had about 1,300. About half of our land surveyors have been licensed longer than 25 years. So we're losing them faster than we're making them. So we see that as a critical thing that the board has to work on. 3 years ago, we licensed 11 new surveyors. Last year, we licensed 31. This year, we licensed 81. So we're trending in the right way, but we're probably going to have to do 150 a year just to keep up with, what we're losing. So I now have a staff of 8, and we're planning to add one more in the next fiscal year for 9. So.
Is that from lack of folks getting in the industry?
It is. Becoming a surveyor is kind of an odd, there's a lot of experience, there's a lot of different education. Most of them don't come with a degree, so they have to get 18 hours of education. Some of the opportunities for working under a land surveyor is difficult for some people depending on where they live, especially if they're in the more rural areas. So we're having to find creative ways to get to these people. We're looking at 4-H, just Boy Scouts, just wherever we can find kids that like to be outdoors and might be interested in something like that. We're just trying to find them and point them to online opportunities. But it's getting to the point that you can't get an acre surveyed hardly in many places. A surveyor that's just as busy as he can be doing large projects doesn't want to stop to do that. So it is becoming problematic. So we're trying to rectify that and we're getting out in the schools and trying to reach people for that position, but it's going to take some time, and we're going to have to find creative ways to find those people. So, but there are opportunities. I mean, we have surveyors that own businesses that want to sell them to somebody. They're ready to get out. They want to, get out of that business, but they can't find anybody, and their kids, for whatever reason, just weren't interested or, did something else. So it's becoming a large problem. But yes, we would like to see our space upgraded just a bit for our employees.
Thank you for that. Any questions, comments from the committee? Thank you so much for your presentation. Last but not least, State Elections Board.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, my name is John Frevier. I'm the chairman of the State Election Board. I'm joined today by a member Janice Johnson, Dr. Janice Johnson, who's also with us. Our funding is under line 327.1000, State Election Board. near the end, as you stated. The funding that you see there, the budget you see there, is the same funding that we had in the amended budget from last year, approximately $789,000, which allowed for us to expand our state election board by adding two investigators and further help us separate from the Secretary of State. That is, like I said, the same budget we had last year. This year, we have offered an amended budget to the House that was presented to them last week to Chairman Hatchett, and it'll be sent to you today for members of the board, which would increase our funds greatly to approximately $1.389 million. And that would allow us to hire an additional 4 investigators, another admin person, and a legal counsel, in-house legal counsel. There's a much expanded version of that budget that you'll see that goes into rent and expenses associated with that, and the compensation salary for all of that, and office rent and IT and such. And there's also an expanded version of this $789,000 budget that you should have with you that shows all that. It has been told to me that it is the will of the legislature to help separate us even further from the Secretary of State. Right now, we're administratively attached to them and dependent upon them for our investigators and other kind of things, our office space and all. We need further funding if you want us to separate further, and that amended budget that you'll get today will further help us with that. I think that that's pretty self-explanatory. The reason we need additional investigators, we have over 500 cases out there right now. 300 of them approximately have been investigated. There's about 200 that haven't been investigated yet. That's a lot of work. It's a duty of this board to adjudicate those cases statewide as they come before us, and also to help with training if funded, and other operations, rulemaking and such. And right now we're a very small staff, and we consist of a administrator or a paralegal, and we're in the process of hiring a new executive director, and that's all the staff we have at this point besides our fully volunteer board. So
thank you. Any comments or questions? Yeah, I look forward to getting that information. Thank you for letting me know that.
You'll have it in your hands today.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate y'all's time today.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that wraps us up. Thank you for everyone that got here early this morning. I appreciate your time today. We're adjourned. Thank you for coming. Yes, ma'am. Yep.
We need to figure